Being liked is a beautiful dream, but if you want to live authentically, you must first wake up. From a young age, we were taught, if you're obedient, kind, considerate, and always polite, others will love you. That teaching sounded as gentle as a lullaby. But as you grow up, you come to realize something else. The world does not reward kindness. The world listens only to strength. The kinder you are, the more people expect you to stay silent. The more patient you are, the longer they delay. The more you compromise, the more they try to take it all. And then one day, you find yourself standing in a crowded room, feeling completely hollow, not because you lack worth, but because you handed over the right to define yourself to others. At some point, their gaze became the only mirror you looked into, and every frown, every judgment, every indifferent gesture made you question your own value. This is not a message for those who want to be comforted. This is a wake-up call for those who are exhausted from living as the pleasant one. Machiavelli, a man often branded as a symbol of ruthlessness, was, in truth, only saying something simple. If you don't control how others perceive you, you become a slave to their perception. We are not here to learn how to be cruel. We are here to learn how to build inner strength, not cold, not ruthless, but clear on our worth, firm on our boundaries, and walking forward with strategic calm. Because in this chaotic world, the kind person who does not know how to protect themselves is the first to be removed from the board. 1. Kindness makes you easy to exploit, because leniency is always mistaken for weakness. We grow up in an education system that encourages kindness, gentleness, and soft behavior as essential virtues to be accepted and loved, but there is a darker side few dare to speak of. In the real world, kindness is not seen as a noble quality, it's often seen as an opportunity. And the kindest people, yet they don't understand boundaries, are often the ones who suffer the deepest wounds. A person who forgives easily, always says, "It's okay," constantly yields, and always tries to please others, will gradually be seen as someone without limits. People will no longer regard your kindness as a choice, but as a given, and when something is seen as a given, it loses its value. Kindness becomes invisible, cheap. You may give endlessly, but instead of gratitude, what you often receive is disregard, or worse, exploitation. Why? Because human psychology always seeks out weakness to exploit. In a world where power determines control, kindness without boundaries will be mistaken for weakness. And in the eyes of opportunists, weakness equals opportunity. The more forgiving you are, the more likely you are to be hurt again. The more accessible you are, the more manipulable you become. The more incapable you are of saying no, the more you vanish in the eyes of those you try to please. So what should you do? Stop being kind? No, but you must learn to place boundaries around your kindness. Kindness with boundaries earns more respect than unconditional leniency. Let others know you are kind, but not naive. You're willing to help, but no one has the right to take advantage. You are gentle, but not someone who can be led around. This is not just a strategy. It is the foundation of self-worth. Be kind, but don't be compliant. Be good-hearted, but don't let yourself be easy prey. That is what intelligent kindness looks like. 2. Fear lasts longer than love. Love fades easily, but fear, if built properly, creates lasting respect. There is a difficult truth to accept, but one that cannot be denied. Love, no matter how beautiful, is an emotion that changes easily. It is tied to expectation, fleeting feelings, and moments of connection that can quickly dissolve over time. One misjudged look, a careless word, a small misunderstanding, all can destabilize what once seemed like deep affection. Because love, in most of our daily lives, is not built on essence but on emotion, and emotion is never stable. In contrast, fear, when built correctly, has the ability to create a kind of respect that endures. Not the kind of fear that makes others tremble, but the fear of losing your respect, fear of crossing the boundaries you've clearly set, fear of making a wrong move and having to face tangible consequences. That fear isn't meant to control, it exists to prevent contempt. Machiavelli once said, "If you must choose between being loved or being feared, choose to be feared, because when hearts change, when self-interest is threatened, love disappears like smoke. But if you've built an image that tells others they cannot cross you so easily, then even when they no longer love you, they still won't dare to disrespect you. That is a form of invisible, but highly effective, protection. Proper fear doesn't harm anyone. It establishes limits. It says, I'm kind, but you're not allowed to overstep. I'm willing to give, but I will never allow myself to be exploited. And from that boundary, others learn to respect you. Not because you're sweet, but because you're not easy to hurt. That's not control, that's self-mastery. Not dominance, but strength of character. And that kind of strength is remembered far longer than any declaration of love. 3. Machiavelli. A true leader is someone who is respected, and sometimes must be feared, not through violence, but through strategic control. Niccolo Machiavelli did not teach us how to be tyrants. He taught us how to survive in a world where people act according to their interests, not their morals. And in that world, a leader who wants to be respected cannot rely solely on kindness or virtue. As Machiavelli wrote in The Prince, men are quicker to forget the death of a father than the loss of a patrimony. Or in simpler terms, people forget gratitude more easily than fear. A true leader doesn't need to shout or use brute force. They lead with presence, with principle, with selective silence that makes others cautious and respectful. They are not rigid all the time, but they know exactly when to be firm, when to be soft, and when to stay silent to maintain control. They don't let emotions dominate, they orchestrate emotions like a musician handles an instrument. A great leader never allows others to fully understand their intentions. They maintain a strategic ambiguity, just enough to keep manipulators wary. Because power doesn't lie in what you think, it lies in the fact that no one else can predict what you will do next. And that unpredictability is one of the most powerful forms of control. Machiavelli understood, love is an emotion easily betrayed, but respect, when coupled with proper fear, lasts longer. Not fear of you, but fear of losing the fairness you establish. Fear of hurting someone who consistently holds their standards. A leader, if they wish to maintain their position, cannot rely on faith alone. They need a strategy, they need boundaries, they need selective coldness. They must create the impression that, if you betray me, you will lose more than you realize. 4. Effective power does not lie in affection, but in clear boundaries. Everyone acts from self-interest, not loyalty. People tend to idealize emotions, placing loyalty on a pedestal. But Machiavelli pointed out a harsh truth. Most human behavior does not stem from loyalty, but from self-interest. They will support you when it benefits them, and they will leave you, even betray you, when that benefit disappears, or when a better option appears. That's why a leader cannot rely on sentiment to win people's loyalty. They must establish clear boundaries, non-negotiable rules of engagement. These boundaries aren't walls to isolate, but maps to guide, so everyone understands. Crossing the line comes with a price. Because true power doesn't lie in making people like you. It lies in ensuring they do not dare to disrespect you. When your boundaries are vague, you become fertile ground for exploitation. When your principles are unclear, you invite others to test your limits. But when you define your rules with firmness, you give them a reason to tread carefully. They don't need to love you. They just need to know that if they violate your limits, consequences will follow, inevitably, silently, and without hesitation. Machiavelli did not promote cruelty. He promoted wisdom. Don't believe in eternal loyalty. Believe in boundaries that are consistently upheld, because that is what sustains power. And never assume you are respected simply because you are kind. You are respected because people know you cannot be easily manipulated. Clarity in your principles is the most enduring foundation for any power dynamic. 5. Power doesn't lie in constant presence, but in the ability to appear at the right moment. The more unpredictable you are, the harder you are to defeat. In the world of strategy and influence, those who appear too frequently soon become disregarded. Constant presence, without pause, makes you too familiar, and eventually dulls your effect. Those who are always available, always responding, always showing up, are often the ones most easily controlled and least respected, because presence alone means nothing if it isn't accompanied by significance. Machiavelli understood this well. A wise leader isn't someone who is everywhere, but someone who knows when to show up to create the greatest impact. Like the most powerful piece on a chessboard, they don't move often, but every appearance is decisive. The unpredictable individual always keeps opponents on edge. They don't reveal too much. Don't speak unnecessarily. Don't react impulsively. They compel others to guess, to evaluate, to tread carefully with every interaction. This strategic ambiguity creates an invisible power. People respect you not just for what you've done, but because they don't know what you'll do next. And that prevents them from underestimating you. You don't need to be present all the time to be influential. What you need is precision in every appearance. A timely word carries more weight than 100 daily lectures. A sudden action exerts more force than 10 meaningless presences. It is restraint that creates gravitas. It is selective absence that builds authority. So don't try to always be there. Learn how to appear at the right time, in the right place, under the right conditions. And when you do appear, make it impossible to ignore, because the one who is hard to predict is the one hardest to defeat. In silence, when used wisely, can become the loudest voice on the power board. 6. The loneliness of those with power. The higher you rise, the fewer people truly understand you. And that is the price of freedom. When you're at the bottom, people swarm around you, advisors, supporters, sympathizers. But as you begin to rise, you'll discover a truth. The higher the altitude, the thinner the air, and the scarcer the genuine souls. This is not a tragedy, but a law of nature. Power, if misunderstood, can give people the illusion that the one at the top is the loneliest. But in truth, that loneliness doesn't stem from having no one around, but from having so few who understand the weight you carry. When you are the decision maker, you are also the one who must face the consequences. When you no longer depend on others' emotions, you also lose the ease of being consoled. You may speak with many, but there are few with whom you can truly speak. You may hear many compliments, but few will dare to tell you your actual flaws. And the longer you hold on to power, the more you must accept this. Some burdens cannot be shared, some choices cannot be explained, and some silences only you will understand. Machiavelli didn't romanticize solitude. He viewed it as an essential component of intellect and fortitude, because only when you overcome the fear of being misunderstood or isolated can you truly maintain autonomy. The freedom you seek, the kind that bows to no one, that depends on nothing, that pleases no one out of obligation, always comes at a cost. And sometimes, that cost is solitude. But make no mistake, solitude is not weakness. Solitude is not needing others to agree in order to believe in what you do. It is the ability to stand still in the middle of a storm, without letting your soul waver from the noise around you. And the one who can walk through that solitude is someone who has matured enough to be truly free. 7. Always keep a part of yourself secret. When others don't know everything about you, they can't completely hurt you. True power doesn't lie in what you say, but in what you choose to hold back. When you let others know too much, they'll find your weak spot. When you tell too much of your story, you inadvertently hand them the weapon they'll use against you. And when everyone can read you like an open book, you've already lost your greatest element of power: unpredictability. Machiavelli once said, "A wise man never reveals the entirety of his mind," and that's why those with lasting influence always keep part of themselves silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they know when not to say it. Think about it. The people who make you most cautious in life aren't the talkative ones, but those you can't fully figure out. It's that unclearness that forces you to tread carefully, to observe more, to restrain your instinct to attack. Conversely, those who are always overly open, desperate to be understood, are often the ones most easily hurt, because they've dismantled every layer of armor on their own. Keeping secrets isn't deception, it's the right to protect yourself selectively. No one is obligated to share every thought, every feeling, every goal. Even with those closest to you, you still need a separate space, where only you and your inner voice reside. And from that private space, you maintain balance. When the world tries to label you, you can still smile, because you know they've never truly known you. And when you enter any game, you always have one card unturned, a safe zone no one can reach, because a person who can't be fully read can't be fully controlled, and someone who can't be controlled is undefeated on the board of life. 8. Understanding others' fears and desires is the secret to behavioral manipulation. A great leader doesn't give orders. They tap into psychology. An intelligent person commands with words, but a true leader doesn't need to say much. They just need to touch the right fear or desire. and behavior will adjust itself. Machiavelli didn't view people as morally pure beings. He studied them as systems of reflex. Human behavior runs on hidden motives: fear of loss, craving for recognition, obsession with power, insecurity about status. Once you understand that, you don't need to control. You only need to trigger the right emotion, and people will act as you wish, while believing it was their own free will. The wise don't aim to manage outward behavior. They seek to activate internal drive. They don't tell you, be loyal. They make you fear losing your position if you betray. They don't force you to work harder. They make you believe you'll be recognized if you do. Every command is disguised as agreement. Every coercion is wrapped in the appearance of free will. That's why those who deeply understand human psychology are always the ones who hold the most durable power. Because they don't need brute force. They use insight like an invisible scalpel, dissecting every move, every glance, every unspoken longing, and from there, they manipulate not from the outside in, but from the inside out. You want to control a group? Don't tell them what to do. Understand what they want and what they fear, and make them feel that the action you need from them is the only path to fulfill that desire or avoid that fear. When that happens, you won't need commands, you won't need punishments, you just need to watch and pull the strings at the right moment. The one who controls bodies is powerful, but the one who controls emotions rules the game. 9. Power is a shared illusion. You only have power if others believe you do. This is the greatest paradox of power. It's not something you have. It's something others believe you have. You can't declare yourself powerful, not until others behave as if you truly are. And if one day, the crowd stops believing in your power, then even if you possess armies, wealth, or prestige, all of it becomes a soulless shell. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He said, power is an illusion maintained through strategy, meaning, you don't hold power because you deserve it. You hold it because you maintain the belief that you're in control. The throne you sit on isn't as solid as you think. It's built from countless glances, recognitions, acceptances, and acts of submission. And if any of these pillars collapse, you will fall with them. A wise leader never forgets. Power needs to be constantly renewed. It doesn't survive on its own. It must be reinforced through action, through image, through symbolism, through a sense of invulnerability. And sometimes, all it takes is a single moment of weakness, one sign that you're no longer in control, for the armor you wear to become a target others rush to attack. So you must learn to nurture the illusion, not to deceive, but to understand. Truth matters less than the belief in that truth. You don't need to be right, you need to appear right. You don't need to be flawless, you just need to make others feel you're always in control. Because that feeling is what creates power. And for that reason, power isn't for those who are easily read or easily shaken. It belongs to those who know when to be silent, when to keep distance, when to show up, when to plant doubt, and when to inspire belief. You don't need to be a Cain, you just need to make others believe you are someone they must listen to. 10. A true leader is one who manages the fragility of power with constant awareness. You cannot maintain power for long if you believe you truly possess it. Because power, as Machiavelli once said, is not a possession, but a dynamic state, an unspoken agreement between a leader and those who agreed to be led. And that state can vanish at any moment, the second you let your vigilance slip. Many think they lose power due to betrayal, overthrow, or competition, but the truth is, they lose power because they themselves stop staying alert. They begin to believe that status is permanent. That credibility, once earned, will last forever. That loyalty is something that can be signed into contracts. And it is precisely these illusions that mark the beginning of their downfall. A real leader lives in constant alertness, but not in panic. They are not afraid, but they are acutely aware of their limits. They understand that every word, every decision, every absence sends a signal, and that signal will be interpreted, analyzed, and potentially exploited. That's why they never act on impulse. They think with the eyes of an observer, one who sees the entire board, not just the next move. The kind of awareness Machiavelli spoke of isn't anxiety, it's a form of cold intelligence. It keeps you from being intoxicated by victory, blinded by praise, or naive before flattery. It reminds you, today you are respected, but one misstep tomorrow, and you may be doubted. A true leader never lets power cloud their awareness. They don't chase glory, they orchestrate respect, and it is this orchestration, quiet, enduring, that is the clearest sign of true leadership and inner strength. 11. Strategic silence, the kind that makes enemies fear their own assumptions. The one who knows when to stay silent commands the whole room. When everyone is talking, the one who stays silent becomes the center. When people rush to react, the one who chooses to wait becomes the most formidable enigma. That is the power of strategic silence, an invisible weapon that makes the entire room cautious. Machiavelli never praised those who talk too much, nor did he advocate for passivity. He believed in the power of waiting for the right moment. Intelligent people never reveal everything. They let others speak, let the crowd speculate, let enemies draw their own conclusions, and in that very uncertainty, power is created. You don't need to make threats. You just need to remain silent at the right moment, and those around you will start to wonder, where are they thinking? Do they know something we don't? How will they respond? Those questions spark a quiet fear, one even stronger than any overt warning, because fear of the unseen is always the most persistent. A wise leader never lets themselves become an open book. They know that the more you talk, the more you explain, the faster you react, the more you lose your mystique. And once people can predict you, they will start to control you. But when you remain silent, you throw them off balance. They don't know your weakness, your limits, or when you'll strike. Silence is not avoidance, it is the most sophisticated move, because it causes others to act from insecurity, to react from confusion, and like a master tactician, you only need to wait for the right moment to place a single piece, and the entire board will shift. 12. Timely praise is more powerful than a threat, because it proves the leader has true discernment. Everyone knows fear can bring obedience, but only timely recognition can inspire loyalty from the heart. Praise, if used too often, becomes hollow applause. But when used at the right moment, for the right person, in the right context, it becomes the king's seal, etched into the soul of the recipient. You've been seen, you have value, and I am discerning enough to recognize that. Machiavelli did not preach absolute coldness. He understood that in the game of power, emotional rewards, like praise, can be more effective than any command. A simple compliment, delivered at the right time, after a bold risk, a breakthrough result, or a moment when it's needed most, plants deeply in the mind the impression, they saw me, even when no one else did. And from that point on, you won't need to remind them. They will be loyal on their own. They'll protect their position. They'll become the silent soldier guarding the throne you sit on. But remember, praise is a valuable asset, not a discounted commodity. It must be used sparingly, preserved, and given like a rare reward. The wise do not praise to please, they praise to reinforce order, to acknowledge merit, to sow influence. And for that reason, every time you publicly recognize someone, the entire power structure will be watching. They're not just listening to what you say, they're learning how you choose people, how you define value, and in that moment, the standards you set become the standards for the whole system. A threat can make someone afraid, but timely praise can make them willing to follow you for life. 13. Don't destroy your opponent too early. Let them become a living reminder of your strength. A rival who fails publicly reinforces your position more than any rumor ever could. In the art of leadership, eliminating an opponent too quickly is not always wise. Machiavelli understood that when your enemy disappears quietly, your power loses a mirror to reflect itself. But when that enemy fails publicly, in front of everyone, their defeat becomes a vivid declaration of your strength. A true leader doesn't always seek to crush the opposition. They keep them within view. Allow a certain level of resistance, just enough to create contrast. And then, when that opponent makes a mistake, exposes their weakness, and loses in a game you've quietly orchestrated, your silence becomes the sharpest weapon. Because when others witness your rival being broken, not by brute force, but by the failure of their attempt to challenge you, they understand. This is not someone who can be easily taken down. And in that moment, you don't need to say anything more. Reality speaks for you. This is not a game of revenge, it's a long-term psychological strategy. You allow resistance to exist, not because you feel threatened, but because you want people to see, no matter how hard they try, those challengers cannot harm you. And the more people witness this, the more your influence solidifies, not through blind fear, but through undeniable evidence. You don't need to kill a wolf to prove you're the stronger one. You only need to let it howl and break its own leg in the trap you quietly laid. 14. True leadership is revealed in crisis. Calmness in chaos is the highest standard. True power is not measured by what you do when everything is going well, but by how you remain standing when everything collapses around you. In times of crisis, the crowd will look around, and all eyes will land on the leader. They're not waiting for an immediate solution. They're looking for a display of steadiness. They want to see someone whose hands don't tremble, someone who can hold a steady gaze in the middle of the storm, so they have a reason to hold on to hope. Machiavelli knew that real authority does not come from past prestige, but from present posture. You might be an admirable leader when things are smooth, but you are only remembered as irreplaceable when you lead others through chaos. And the important thing is not that you always have the answer, but that you do not fall apart while searching for it. Intelligent people don't respond with panic. They respond with cold, deliberate observation. They are not swept away by the collective emotional tide, because they understand. The one who stays calm is the one who reshapes the order. A rushed decision can dismantle an entire system. A single shaky gesture can spread chaos, but a firm stance, a quiet voice, a steady gaze, can pull an entire group back from the edge. That is the ultimate power of true leadership. Remember, people don't follow you because you know everything. They follow you because, in the moment, no one else knows what's right. You're still the only one who doesn't flinch. You don't need to shout commands. You only need to hold your silence when everyone else has started to panic. That is the unmistakable sign of someone born to lead. True strength doesn't come from making others fear you, but from no longer fearing being misunderstood, disliked, or betrayed. After all the strategies, principles, arts of control and balance, what remains is one simple truth: you don't need to be loved by everyone. You only need to be properly respected. Don't chase after the gaze of the crowd. Don't lower yourself to hold on to relationships that have already decayed. Don't humble yourself just to be soothed by cheap praise. Kindness without strategy is merely an open invitation for others to take advantage of you. And courage without discipline is simply impulsiveness in disguise. You are at your strongest when you know when to stay silent, when to step back and observe, when not to react to every provocation, and most importantly, when you know who truly deserves to enter your energy field. From today on, stop trying to please everyone. Choose to become someone not easily accessible, not because you are arrogant, but because you understand this deeply. Your presence is a gift. Not everyone deserves to receive it. You don't need to become a tyrant. You only need to become the leader of your own life. And when you stand tall in the middle of the storm, without needing to speak, without needing to explain, that is the moment when the world will fall silent